So it's trying to flip that perception of cervical screening and just make people feel in control, know what's happening to them, and make people aware of we call them reasonable adjustments, of different things that they can ask to make that procedure 100% there, personalised to them. And that's the big thing that we always try and say. There is nothing that's too much or too little to ask.
Welcome to Transform Your Menopause with Essex Menopause Coach, the go-to podcast for anyone struggling from peri to post-menopause. If you're feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, or anxious, this is the place for you. Hosted by me, Julie, an award-winning coach who's been in your shoes, this podcast offers real understanding and practical help. I'll tackle menopause head-on with clear, no-nonsense guidance that makes a real difference. So whether you need support, tips, or just a friendly voice, I'm here to help you navigate menopause and rediscover your best self.
Right, hello and welcome back to Transform Your Menopause. Today's episode is an important one. In honour of Cervical Cancer Prevention Week, we're talking about cervical screening and why it's particularly relevant to those of us in our menopausal years. So joining me today is a fabulous Natalie, one of the community outreach nurses with a very important invitation, based in Suffolk and North Essex. Natalie and her team are working incredibly hard to support women through the screening process, making it smooth and stress-free as possible. So welcome, Natalie.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really grateful, and brilliant platform to be on to raise awareness during this important week.
I'm really glad that you're here and that you're going to be sharing your expertise with us. I might have said to you before, this topic is something that's pretty close to my heart, having had some treatment in the past. And, that likely wouldn't have been picked up if it hadn't been for cervical screening. So, it's a really important topic to me. So let's talk a little bit why it's important. So cervical screening is one of the most powerful tools we have for preventing cervical cancer, but uptake remains a bit of a challenge. So I've got a couple of stats here. So 1 in 3 women in the UK don't attend the cervical screening when invited. Cervical screening saves around 5,000 lives every year in the UK. Natalie and her team's work has already made a big difference in Suffolk. So they've increased screening rates by about 4%. And they're looking to replicate this in North Essex. Midlife women, especially those in perimenopause and menopause, are a key group that they really want to target and increase that uptake. And it's really important to know that screening does remain really important still at this time of life. So with Natalie's help, we're going to unpack all that and get down to all the important facts. So why don't we begin by, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the Important Invitation project and what makes it unique.
Yeah, perfect. So we originally started in Suffolk, and it's only been as of March, April last year that we expanded into North East Essex. So as part of that, we've just been trying to expand, get the word out to GP surgeries, attending events, anywhere really where sort of Joe Public is going, that we can spread the word about what we do and that we're out there. It's still an ongoing challenge. It's trying to educate people about knowing the importance of the procedure, why it's needed, that it's not something that has to be done to them. That's one of our biggest bugbears, so to speak, is making the patients know that they are 100% in control. We will always reiterate it at the time of procedure as well, of just saying at any point you can tell me to stop, we can cancel. And I think that's another challenge of people feel as soon as they attend their appointment, they have to go through with it. And I think that's a huge difficulty because they're already putting so much pressure on themselves before they've come through the door. And especially if they've had a bad experience, all of the other barriers that people face of not coming, added with all of that. Oh my God, now I've booked it. Now it's actually happening. Do I have to go ahead with this? What if it's really painful? What if it's really uncomfortable? And again, that then becomes another reason going forward that then people don't want to go because they thought about that previous time when they got anxious and they were actually in pain and they didn't feel that they could stop. They didn't feel that they could leave the appointment and they felt they had to just keep going and they might have bled afterwards. So it's trying to flip that perception of cervical screening and just make people feel in control, know what's happening to them and make people aware of we call them reasonable adjustments, of different things that they can ask to make that procedure 100% there, personalised to them. And that's the big thing that we always try and say. There is nothing that's too much or too little to ask. We've said about podcasts, playing music. I've had people flicking through my phone on chart music and things on Spotify to try and help them. We've been singing to Britney Spears. Whatever helps people, it's just putting the power back into the patient's hand, and that's 100% at the root of what we're trying to achieve.
And are you going into GP practices and helping like the practice staff to make this kind of part of like the standard procedure?
Yes, yeah, 100%. So we go into the surgeries to not only train, so half of the very important invitation deals with the cytology, so it's the training of new practice nurses. So all of them go through our training to then become a qualified sample taker. But then also me and my colleague go in and do what's called health inequalities training to reception staff and the clinical staff to say about the language that they use and how they can suggest the reasonable adjustments, talking about sort of LGBTQ plus community, looking at, I know it's very, very difficult for reception staff, they get their short amount of time, but just again, advising them of the procedure, what happens and the different ways that they can help. But then also today I was doing a non-responder clinic, which is another huge side to the project. So half of, I know we'll obviously touch on this later, obviously in regards to menopause. So screening ages runs from, normally get invited about 6 months before 25th birthday, so around 24 and 6 months, up until 64. The two ends of that scale are the ones that we really struggle to get in. So normally sort of 25 to 35, and then 50 to 64 is the other end that we struggle with. And the clinic that I did today at a GP surgery, it was a non-responder. So it's people who have been invited for years on years, and for whatever reason, they haven't been coming to their screening. So we get the list from the clinics, and we work through those lists, contacting them individually. So they've got a chance to speak to a clinician to just say, is there any reason? Is there anything that we can do to try and facilitate it, to make it more comfortable? Time of day, size of speculum, anything like that. And like we'll go on in regards to like breathwork and estrogen gels and different things like that. But some of the people that we're seeing haven't had screening for 10, 15, 20 years. And we've been able to get them through the clinic to come and feel comfortable to have their screening. So from that
I can
point
see
of
why
view,
though, to be honest, because that's a much more personal approach, isn't it? To be
yeah.
able to sit and have a discussion with someone
Mhm,
like you
mhm,
who makes that conversation easy in the first
yeah,
place,
yeah,
and to then actually be able to say, well, I've not come because of this reason or whatever, so that you can then
yeah.
go, okay, here's the adjustments. Because I don't think, if I'm being completely honest, that typically would
Mhm,
happen
mhm,
in
mhm,
the normal appointment. So it'd be really
yeah,
nice, wouldn't it, to be in an ideal world if we all had all that time, wouldn't it, to
yeah,
that be part of like a standard appointment. I think that's
yeah,
amazing you've been able to do that. Interesting
yeah.
you were saying about either end of the spectrum, like
Scale,
the
yeah,
rates
yeah.
dropping off.
Mhm.
So I imagine there's quite a few misconceptions then really amongst some people about why they don't present. I don't know. It's like
Yeah,
it could be
huge.
things like, I don't know, I've had the same sexual partner for so many years, I don't need to come. Is that the
Mhm.
sort of things you see when you're out doing your outreach work?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So people who have never been sexually active, we call them like mythbusters that we've done in the past. So people who haven't been sexually active, although numbers and chances are very low, we wouldn't necessarily have that as a reason to not have their smear. So again, I've worked with people recently. They've come in and they've been of screening ages, but they've not ever been sexually active. And unfortunately, they've had a really, really traumatic experience and very much been almost thrown against them as a reason, because They couldn't
Mm,
relax, they didn't find it comfortable, but it also came down to the attitude of the person taking it that was then difficult, because
mm,
they weren't then saying anything about how they felt, and the other person was then being very short with them, and saying, "Oh, well, actually, you don't need it, and just relax and just breathe," and all of this thing. And when you've got somebody who's quite stern and short and sharp, and you
Just
think,
relax, you'll be fine, just relax. That's the
yeah,
worst, literally the
the
opposite, isn't it, of what you
ultimate
need at that
ultimate
moment.
word, yes. Oh, now I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's so hard, and you can understand why people have, yeah, you've only got to have that one negative experience, and it could put somebody off for the next 10 years, and that's the whole flip of just changing the attitude. Is, again, this is what we say to the clinical staff and the receptions is, you've got no idea if that person's sat in the car for the last half an hour preparing to come in for this appointment. You've got no idea if they've got
mm,
birth traumas, sexual abuse history, if they're triggered by, I don't know, sounds, lights, anything, and how much that has taken that patient to come in. So it's just trying to soften the attitude. And I know it's very easily done. I'm still in practice as well. And I know that the demands and the time are always difficult.
mm,
And you could have the worst patient who's just shouted at you, and then you get somebody else in and you understand being short with them. But it's just trying to say, take a breath, give yourself a minute, on to the next patient, and think about what they could be there, and just understand. And it's so hard. It's so hard for people. And again, even today, I've had people who are just sob, whether it's just when they're explaining about a previous experience, or even just being on the couch can really trigger them, or even afterwards, a lady sobbed because she was so happy. She was like, "You've just made this the most easiest
Oh,
appointment
it's
ever."
relief, isn't it? Because you build it up so much. I think, like,
Yeah,
even if you have the most straightforward background of anyone, I think you're in such
you're
a vulnerable
vulnerable. Yeah,
position, aren't you? Having
yeah,
an intimate procedure. I know for the staff doing it, it might not feel that
yeah,
way because you're doing it all the time. But I
yeah,
think for the person sat there laying on that couch having that done at that particular moment, it is
100%.
something you'd
Yeah,
rather not do, whichever
yeah,
way you put it. But I think we've
yeah.
almost got to, like, turn that on its head a little bit, haven't we? And start thinking of it as, another aspect of self care almost.
Yeah, yeah. And again, like I say, it's that shifting the power back to the patient and saying, please, please, please don't think you have to have it done to you. You are in control. You can change the situation at any point, and you're allowed to stop, to change position, to say, can you give me a minute? And all of these different things, which, yeah, is just saying you don't have to grin and bear it, which we're very well known for in this country.
Yeah, so we've touched on loads of different challenges and barriers there, haven't we? Just
Mhm,
emotional anxiety, previous appointments, it being
mhm.
uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and particularly during menopause, like vaginal dryness, atrophy, really making that experience something completely different.
Huge. Yeah,
And like
yeah,
time constraints, even like busy like work schedules and family life responsibilities, as you've already touched on, fitting all that in.
yeah,
So that really leads us on quite nicely to the kinds of solutions and adjustments that maybe people can ask for.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So in regards to like the younger age, or if anybody's ever coming for their first smear, again, it could be people in their 30s who have never had a smear and they're only then just coming for their first one. I will always give people the option to just look at the equipment if they want to. And I say, do you want me to tell you what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, and talk you through the procedure? Because again, it's just allowing that patient to know what's happening to them, be in control. And I let them have a look at the speculum sizes and the brush and everything that we use during it. In regards to menopause, I do think the size is a huge thing in regards to the speculums. There are 5 sizes. Obviously, it's going to come down to anatomy as well, because some people are just going to have a higher cervix that's sort of further up, and we do need a longer speculum. But that being said, there are some that are wider than there are others. So again, it's just being mindful that if you have got somebody, and I always say to them about, have you had previous smears that you've found difficult, or screening that's been painful and things like that, because then I'll know that yes or no it wasn't, and then I can think, okay, well maybe we'll start with a narrower one so that we can, just take away a little bit of that extra pressure that can sometimes apply. Always using lubrication, which again was something people never used to. We used to have the old-fashioned metal speculums, and they used to be ran under the water. Lubrication wasn't allowed to be used, so they'd just be ran under the water. But obviously with metal, they're conducting heat and opens up a whole new can of worms. But yes, lubrication should always be used. And even again during menopause, knowing about if they're really, really anxious about it and concerned about vaginal dryness, then having that conversation leading up to the appointment so that they know that they can have that estrogen gel a couple of weeks before the appointment is going to help massively.
Yeah, definitely. And even if they get to the appointment on the day, they can still go away, starting the topical, and then come back in a few weeks,
Yeah.
a few months' time and revisit it. And the whole experience would be that much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, in regards to bringing music, fidget toys, some people who have learning disability or need to fidget with something, have autism, knowing about the lighting, if it's just going to be a little bit relaxing, if you can dim the lights or turn certain ones off, certain times of the day. And having like a relaxation thing playing, or even a like a guided breathing meditation kind of audio has been really helpful for some people. But I know we'll touch on different breathing exercises, but it's just amazing to know about different types of ones that have someone's voice in their ear, just saying in for this amount, count for
Yeah.
this long. And
Yeah.
it's just like,
Yeah.
now
It
is
takes
the
all the
time where I need
responsibility
to be
away from
told
you,
how to
doesn't it? If you
breathe.
can just follow along and do it, that's great, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
I think that
absolutely.
you can also change the position, can't you? Like on the couch. You don't have to be like lying on your back. You can be on your side.
On your side. Yeah. And again, that's another really great one for people who have had birth or sexual abuse traumas, because, like you said, being in that position can be so, so triggering. So just being on
Mm.
your side, I call it like a fetal position, where you just feel that you're not as exposed and not as vulnerable, I think is a huge thing to be able to offer. So for those, we have got some practices use like a pre-screening questionnaire. So if it's volunteered early on in regards to the booking stage of a cervical screening, some surgeries send out the screening questionnaire, and then they can have the option to write any information of, I've experienced X, Y, Z, or I would like
That's
this
good.
amendment. So yeah, it's a good thing that surgeries can send out to people. But again, it's also
It all comes
knowing
down to ease, doesn't it? It's
request.
about making it easy to share those concerns and those worries in a
Yeah,
way that,
giving
you're not going to
multiple
be put on the spot
opportunities.
or like,
Mhm.
yeah, putting you back in control, which I think that's kind of the main thing that's kind of coming out of what you've been saying today. It's like putting
Yeah,
you back in the driving seat. So it's just about you and making you feel comfortable and in control.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so I think you've led us on nicely to the relaxation technique.
perfect.
So there's lots of different like breathwork techniques that you can do, as you've
Mhm.
already discovered. Now I properly get like white coat syndrome. So
For
like
you.
I am that person. Like I was at the dentist this morning, and
Mhm.
like even when I'm sitting there, because the appointments are always late, and even just sitting
Mhm.
there, like I've not had a bad experience at a dentist for years. It's like it
Yeah,
probably goes back to like being a kid and having fillings. But I still don't like going. And like
yeah.
the longer I'm sat there, I can like, like I am that
Building up,
person.
building up.
Yeah. So like this, I use this technique myself, and there's like lots of different techniques that you can use. But I
Mhm.
think it's probably the easiest, the one you've got to like think about the least,
Mhm.
and is really, really effective. You can use it for panic attacks and things like that as
Mhm.
well. You probably know it already, the straw breath.
Mhm.
So there's and it's safe for everyone to use. No one will even know that you're doing it if you're sat there in the waiting room. You can do it while you're laying on the couch.
Mhm.
So if you're someone that's like me, getting anxious while you're sitting there while you're waiting, it's going to like take that dial down that emotional side of it. Start to take out the sting from all the anxiety. Start to bring all
Mhm.
that down. But on the physical side of things, it's going to like soften your body, start to relax those muscles, so that you can make the experience as comfortable and manageable as possible, really.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so if you're doing it, we'll go through it now. So we can sit together. So if
Mhm.
you're sat there in the waiting room So you have your feet flat on the floor, your spine lengthened. The important things to remember, so just like soften your jaw, let your shoulders drop down and relax. And the most important thing is just like let your belly completely go. Stop any holding of that whatsoever. Women are like the worst for that. And that will really help your breath start to drop down. Because when we're stressed and anxious, we're breathing up here in our chest, which just perpetuates the situation. So if we can drop down into the belly straight away, that makes quite a big difference. So just let it all hang out. And then with the breath, we'll breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. But we use pursed lips, so pretending you've got a straw. Don't worry about the in-breath. The in-breath just totally takes care of itself. All you've got to focus on is just taking that inhale slowly and gently all the way to the end until you feel like you need to inhale again. So it'll look something like this. So it'll be like, and you just keep going in your own time till it gets all the way to the end. So should we do a couple of those together?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you inhale through your nose and then out slowly, slowly through your mouth. And when you feel the urge to breathe in again, breathe in through your nose. And slowly, slowly, gently all the way out through your straw. And then one more of them in your own time. And then when you get to the end of your breath, just pause there and just see how that feels in your body.
I'm instantly more
I
relaxed.
know, it is instant, isn't it? But then you
So
can work on that
strange.
even more. So like if you can hear your breath when you're doing the exhale, the next stage is to make that breath so quiet that you can't hear it anymore. So you make it even more gentle. So we'll just do 2 of those again. But this time you're going to go super, super quiet so you can't hear your breath at all. When you're ready, inhale. And then exhale through your straw. All the way to the end. And then when you're ready, inhale. And exhale through your straw. And then let your breathing come back to normal again. And just take some time to notice. And I think you'll notice there again, even like just making it quiet takes that breath even more gentle and like brings it down even more.
Yeah.
And then the final thing, so I find people, like you were saying about having the guided meditation is quite useful, is having the visualization. So if you can imagine that you've got a candle in front of your lips and you just want to tickle the flame, you don't want to put it out. So that gives another kind of perspective to that. And I think people find that really useful. So we can do a couple of those to see how that feels.
Yeah.
So when you're ready, inhale through your nose. And then just tickling the flame of that candle. You'll notice how much longer your breath goes on for on that exhale.
That's
And then one more of those. And when you get to the end of that breath, just take a moment again. Did the candle make a difference to you? Did you?
Well, I'm very good. Visualization is definitely where I'm a learner. I'm very have to see it, have to be able to feel it. I mean, obviously being nurse, very hands on. But yes, I had my candle here, and I was literally very gently flowing.
So there you go. So
So I
that's
love
something
that.
you can
I
pass
love
on
that.
to your next
Brilliant.
patients that you
I
have
will be
in.
sharing that definitely.
So I think the thing is of any kind of breathwork practice, it's best not to like just arrive on the day and try and do it for the first time. if people can begin to practice it every now and again, just so it's something you get used to. It's like anything in life, isn't it? The more you practice, you kind of get used to it. And then you
Absolutely.
can just pull it out the bag whenever you need it. Okay, so I think we've pretty much covered everything that we wanted to go over today. Was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I know we're going to mention about the contact details, but yeah, I just want to stress that we completely understand that the project in regards to the various barriers that people face, and we just want to make sure that people don't feel alone. So any format in how they want to contact us, if it is through any of the social medias, if they do just want to send an email, if they want to arrange face-to-faces, phone calls, any of that, we just would love to hear from more and more people and be able to support them as much as possible, because it is just horrible to feel like you have to go through it alone. And that's why we exist, and why we do what we do. We love helping and supporting people. So we just want to spread the word as much as possible and try and get more people contacting us, and so we can change the perception and the approach around cervical screening, and make it a more positive experience for people and try and get those numbers up. So anybody listening who knows friends, family, anything like that, please share the video, share the very important information, and hopefully together we will save the world.
Oh, that's brilliant. And do you know what? I know you're so passionate, but the way you get that across, you're so supportive.
Mm.
If I would come forward, I'd be like, oh, I wish she was mine.
Thank
Okay, so
you.
you've said a lot of the things that we were going to say. So just to make it clear for everyone, so there's a few things we'd like you to do from listening to the episode. So if you're due for your screening, go book your appointment, and it could save your life, as you quite well pointed out.
Yes. Yes.
Share the episode to raise awareness so you can encourage others to go and attend their screening. For more support or resources, or to get in touch with Natalie and her team, you can find them on Facebook or Instagram as Very Important Invitation.
Yeah.
There is an email, but we decided it was a bit too long-winded to put on here. So I will put all of those contact details. They'll all be in the episode description. So you can just go on there and go and click the links and go find everything that you need. And that's it. So, Natalie, thanks so much for joining me today, and for
Thank
all
you.
the incredible work that you're doing, and along with your team, to support women in the area. And that's it. So, yeah, if you want to get in touch with Natalie, or you want to find out more about how breathwork can support you in your menopause, or to help you prepare for consultations like we've been discussing today, feel free to get in touch. I'm always here to help. And I know Natalie would love to hear from you as well. So all the details will be in the description. And thanks so much for listening and joining us. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.